For the second edition of DreamHack Masters, the arena moved overseas to the City of Sin, Las Vegas. It was a stacked tournament, with every top team attending to get their hands on the trophy. Astralis came in as the favorites, winning the Atlanta Major just 1 month before, beating Virtus Pro in the finals.
The motivation was really high after the major, so we tried our best, and we wanted so much the win there, in Las Vegas on DreamHack. So I think that was the force that gave us power.
As he dances back and forth between the box, what a shot on Simple! Oh, and it's on the Flamey. He's tapped it. Flamey's got a big. What in God?
I always like to play like there is a lot of crowd. I love the crowd applause and the shouting. That's the best thing.
For Virtus Pro, now was the time for revenge.
I remember exactly the time when we are up to playing Astralis. I said in the interview, I think it's the first of my interview in English.
I think on major we threw a game. We had a lot of good situation and we lost it like noobs.
Time that's running down very quickly. Snacks managed to get in behind and taking down Dupree. Kevi will drop next in line. Device goes down to Snacks, and now it's Sip 1 versus 3. Virtus Pro, unstoppable. 9 rounds in a row.
Throughout the tournament, Virtus Pro plowed through the competition, besting Astralis in the semifinals. Only SK remained.
We always had the great matches versus them. It was for sure close.
Perfect. Taco gets him down. No chance for Passion. A strike. Nice shot. Snacks up close. And a straight flash high in the sky. They won't be able to dodge. Means he can go back for more. And he certainly will. Finds a second and a third. Snacks on fire. What a shot! As he picks up a fifth for Virtus Pro to close the half.
If I remember good, Task clutched versus SK, like 1 versus 2 on A side. That gives us like advantage in the economy. And probably of this clutch we were pumped up and wanted to win the tournament,
Nice shot from Taz. Cold down, gives him the bomb plant. Very important that he gets it. But Phelps is aggressive. I'm impressed with how aggressive he's been in this series. Certainly warming up to the fact that he's on SK and he's got a teammate directly beside him. Taco work together, but they don't go in the same peak. Oh! Utility used a Molotov inside of the window and a smoke at the door. Taco, he's held out of position. He'll Molotov off on Cat because he knows one's there, but it's already found. Neo gets it. And Virtus Pro, they'll pick it up. They were determined all week.
One of the most satisfying moments was the photo when Pasha jumped on my back and we were like holding like one finger in the air that we are #1, and that's the most satisfying thing for me to see this photo, and it's like really close to my heart also. The Pasha is a great man. So.
And once again, the Polish machine had made their way into the history books.
So many fantastic Masters moments have come through over the years, and you know what, Vince? I'm hoping for a few more. We got a stacked day ahead of us. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing really good. I'm looking forward to more Counter-Strike. We've got a fair few days under our belt now in a row, Tom, and I'm looking forward to many, many more. We had a very late night on this stream overall, so let's keep the good times rolling.
Yeah, for sure. And well, we may have ended with NA, but we've got a few SA teams, I guess, coming up later in the day. Either way, it is time. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be kicking off DreamHack Masters Winter Day 2.
DreamHack Masters Winter is brought to you by Intel, Corsair, Monster Energy, and MSI.
Still a big fan of that video. I love all the stuff that DreamHack have come through with, but more importantly, we do have to talk about everything that we have witnessed over the first day. It was a pretty ridiculous one. I know that we have a few little clips to show alongside us just having a little waffle, Vince, but you know, after even we left yesterday, it seemed like things didn't get well, I guess any less crazy. Our first match, I guess, was the only one that really seemed to go to plan.
No, that's very true. And even that match had its moments. Contact definitely giving a good account of themselves, but then things just kind of fell to pieces. We saw Astralis. You know, this was kicking it off early. Magisk with the ridiculous double, and then Astralis got toppled. The Danes were brought to their knees, Tom, and we couldn't believe it. It was a great storyline. I can't wait to see what else Godsent do in this tournament. But it also puts it into a really awkward position where either Liquid or Astralis get eliminated in their next match.
Yeah, I don't really know how we got there. Even like moving on to the game later in the day, like I was looking at that complexity match and sort of thinking, okay, you know what? This is probably going to be a walk in the park. They're facing off against a brand new Ents team. Like, let's be realistic. There shouldn't be any way that they managed to get through that game. And it goes all 3 maps. And the only reason they win the 3rd map, I don't know if you saw this, Vince, but Config went 37-15 on Mirage, and it was a 16-13. So the man hard carried that side of the bracket. So yeah, I think there's a lot of teams that are here to play. I'm also interested to talk to some of the guys later on, like some of the interviews we have, and just sort of ask them, like, there's so many teams that have made changes right at the end of the year, maybe because we don't necessarily have like the major coming up. There's more opportunities to get RMR points. So people have just decided, okay, now's about time to take a bit of a risk. Nonetheless, we do have to talk about the people who make all of this possible. There are so many sponsors that are basically making this, well, a tournament in general. It wouldn't be possible without Intel, Corsair, Monster, MSI, and of course the American Air Force, who are all basically giving us the mullah to, well, just run this tournament. So shout out to them. Of course, purchase all their products. I'm sure they're all fantastic. And now we are going to go moving on because we've seen some highlights, Vince. We have seen what happened, but let's look what it's actually done to the bracket. Let's have a look through the groups, especially within the European side where we will be following through today. And we're going to kick things off with Group A. And, you know, I'm going to let you talk through this one. Any surprises here?
No, absolutely not, Tom. All to plan. Obviously, Spirit taking down FaZe was a bit of a head turner, but you know, FaZe, they've had their issues. It's basically been the Brokey show, and we will get back onto that a bit later on. Complexity Ents, as you said, going the full maps was kind of very surprising to me, and then Cloud9 getting beat by Gambit. That's slightly less surprising because we just saw Gambit we just casted Gambit, I should say, demolish Spirit in the grand finals of the DreamHack Open November, and Shiro and Exile were just their godly selves. So that doesn't really surprise me at all, but there's been a lot of very odd results and a lot of banana peels that have came to fruition in this tournament already in just one day.
And the interesting thing as well is, like, you look at, say, for example, Complexity and Gambit, I think, end with a real chance to actually maybe take that one through. Lower bracket, of course, again, like Ents or Cloud9 going out, both with brand new teams, not really anything too surprising. Contact versus FaZe. If FaZe are the ones to fall here, which I don't think is an impossible situation, we could be witnessing maybe more changes coming in with that roster, because I don't know if you saw, there was an interview yesterday with Rain, and he seemed fairly blunt with the whole situation. Like, we weren't good with communicating, which is the bare minimum. He said there's not really anybody filling him with confidence when it comes to the team. Like, there's not anyone pumping them up anymore, and that it feels weird without playing with Nico anymore. So I don't know. I think that's going to be an interesting one to talk about. Nonetheless, there is another side of things. We can take a look towards Group B, which, yeah, I think this is definitely where the shockers sort of came through. Sure, Mouse versus Liquid, I think we knew was always going to be a close one. I don't think anybody was really sitting there saying that, okay, Liquid are going to come in and dominate, but a strong 2-0 for Mouse. And then Vince, wow, we know what happened next.
Yeah, that was just absolutely mind-blowing. And, you know, we got the pleasure of being able to interview Emmy afterwards. Very short stint already in Godsent, not even fully in the team yet. He's still on trial, and they just pulled off one of the biggest upsets, I think it's safe to say, of the year, actually, Tom. I know Astralis haven't been in fine form, but I don't think many people gave Godsent much hope at all. We thought maybe one map. We said the veto may have gone in their favor. I still didn't think they'd win, though.
No, for sure. Like the maps that I think Astralis got, they got Nuke, they got Train, and then the other was their pick that they won. So, especially with winning Dust 2 so dominantly, to lose Nuke, I think that was the real like nail in the coffin. Like it did not look good for them yesterday. Of course, we've still got more of Group B to come today. We do have G2 facing off against Namiga. Namiga only getting one of their players back today. Lollipop playing with or not playing, I guess, with a broken hand previously. And the final within that group is going to be FURIA North, which will be our first match on the stream. I don't know. We're going to take a little look as well into North America. I think there were a few surprises along the way here as well, Vince. Obviously, I don't know about you, but I was asleep when these match happened. I need my beauty sleep, and you can tell what I would look like otherwise. Chaos getting through, but maybe a little bit tighter than we would have expected. And Triumph, who were the team that faced off against them in the last grand final, actually fell down to the lower bracket. So a few surprises here in North America Group A as well.
Yeah, Triumph is the biggest surprise for me. We said yesterday when we were going through the brackets before any of these games had taken shape, we expected it to be fairly comfortable. Chaos and Triumph going through, maybe even 2-0 in both games. So I suppose within the confines of Chaos actually dropping a map to Rugrats, a little bit of a head turner. But it just goes to show as well over in NA right now, there's a lot of things that are out in the open and there's no real stability in that region. So there's every chance that you get the likes of a Rebirth come through, manage to get some upsets and go the distance. And then obviously today, as you can see there, still some games yet to be played.
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to be supporting the Mythic guys all the way through that one. And obviously on the other side of the bracket, the Brazilians, who I would say that the Brazilians getting through this group are probably what I will be looking towards at least. But yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one coming up today. I know that we can move towards what our schedule is actually going to be, show you everything going on the main stream and the B stream. Basically just give you an idea of whether or not you want to stick around here or head over to those losers on the other stream. Well, you can see. There you go, Vince. G2 versus Namiga. I think our game's definitely better. Ends versus Cloud9 could be interesting. I was looking at that match today and wow, I don't want to be the one having to predict that veto or trying to work out how they're going to play that one because we've basically got two brand new teams.
Yeah, two brand new teams with a lot of talent and ability on them. That could be a really fun match to watch. But then again, you know, to bring it back to the secondary stream over here, Contact Gaming, very good performance against Heroic. Let's be honest, Tom, they'll probably be kicking themselves. They didn't at least get a map. Both maps were close. They had chances to win both maps. So I don't even think that that's a clear-cut game in favor of FaZe. They've been having their problems. So I reckon that could be a good game as well. I don't think there's any weak matches coming up today.
No, in fact, you know that it's an interesting match, especially the third ones, where you've got Heroic versus Team Spirit on the B stream, because I think that would be an absolute banger of a game. Team Spirit definitely having some question marks with losing to Gambit, and then Gambit obviously on the other side of things, who are going to be playing up against Complexity, which again, I think could be a relatively close game. Of course, Heroic, as we've sort of mentioned, are going to be coming up a little bit later on the stream, and we're going to check in. And again, like, we haven't got any of these other interviews, you know, people like Banks or Frankie. Like, why would we get them when we can get a legend like Get Right to come and do our interviews for us?
For almost my entire life, playing Counter-Strike was everything, and it was everything I dreamed of. I won trophies, traveled the world, and played in the biggest arenas. I spent my career as a player being asked the same stupid questions.
How do you feel?
Over and over.
What went wrong?
And over again.
You had a terrible CT side. How did you turn it round to take the game? Why are Astralis the best team in the world?
But now I've decided to face a new challenge, to interview the players I once faced on the servers. Because if Frankie can do it, I mean, anyone can do it. So, hi Casper, hi KDN. Thanks once again for taking the time. But
of course, Chris.
I want to take, you know, the early stage of your career, because I remember back in 2013, you played actually the first major. How would you see yourself like 7 years older now and see, like, look back to how were you, the small KDN, if you could say like that? How was that person, if you can think back to that?
I was so young, obviously, and so inexperienced in both Counter-Strike related stuff, but also just life. boy, I have learned a lot in the last 7 years. I remember sitting up on stage and I was like, wait, what resolution am I playing? Like all those kind of things, I didn't know shit. Like I just wrote my own PC and the settings were perfect from home. All of a sudden I had to play on the stage and I didn't know anything. Like what resolution was I playing? How to get my config in? All those kind of things. So I was a big noob back then, but yeah, definitely a big experience for us to manage to do that. To qualify for the major, I mean, that's what kind of kickstarted my career.
For a fellow competitor, where it's like actually it tears, it like makes me tearing sometimes when I'm seeing you the first time with the NA team when you qualify for the major there. Like, how was it for you in general? Like, moving across the world and like playing with them and like finally, achieve that, small tiny step, but it was a huge step for you personally. Like how was that in general with that whole team?
I saw that a lot of things had to be done in the team, but that there was also a lot of potential. And I think the organization took as good care of me as they possibly could. But people have to understand that this was not like a team where they were living in like the same state or city, or we had like a gaming house or something. Like they facilitated a very nice apartment for me, but I was completely alone. And I didn't talk to anyone. Like I could be for a week or 2 weeks without having any like real social interaction with anyone, like other than just talking with people through the PC. It was definitely tough, but yeah.
Would you ever believe when you joined back to Heroic and actually did this thing, would you ever believe, at least if someone told you beginning of this year, that you would be ranked #1 team in the world?
No, never. Like never. There would not have been a chance. I remember joining, and it's very dangerous and bad to start thinking these things as a competitor, but I was starting to think, okay, maybe like top 10 or top 15, like for the rest of my career will do, right? Like making some deep runs, maybe we'll be lucky to lift a trophy or something. So there's no way I was expecting that. But I think especially when we made the roster changes of adding Tasis and Nico and adding Hunter as a coach, I felt like also adding Hunter as a coach, I felt like this would be there would be some kind of X factor, right? Like this could either go very well or it could go pretty wrong. So I think it was a good chance to take because we all saw how it ended now and that we had our time as #1 and we're still fighting to do so. Right now, #2. Yeah. But yeah, if you're asking me just shortly, I would never have expected it, no.
Thank you so much, Kadia, for taking your time in this beautiful evening and from your playing and all that kind of stuff. And good luck on DreamHack Masters.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Like the complacency almost starting to set in with him sort of saying like, oh, maybe we could just stay 10 to 15 and last their way through. But the power of a roster change. And well, this kind of moves things on for me, Vince, because we're talking of the power of a roster change. What we have coming up next is actually going to be a couple of roster changes coming in, some huge ones as well, because we've got MSL and AZ stepping out of this roster, and North, they're going to be looking to try and take on FURIA. I don't know how you're feeling about that, but I don't know. I'm not sure if this is going to be as successful.
For me, this is very difficult for many of the same reasons that you touched on with that Cloud9 game later. There's a lot of variables and question marks and open-ended sort of discussions that come in. This is going to be the first time this full 5 plays together officially. This is going to be the first time that North have really had themselves without MSL for a while, and obviously he's been in and out of that roster multiple times. For me, that was the biggest shock out of him and AZ. I think AZ maybe have been on the chopping block for a while. He seems to have been happy with that trade-off. He wants to go and seek future things, and it gives him more options. But there is a lot of uncertainty here, Tom. And similar to what we said about Contact yesterday and Godsent, does that maybe give them a slight edge over FaZe? They're going to be a very hard team to counter-strat right now, surely. There's going to be very little information out there about this North roster.
Well, nonetheless, we kind of have to show you guys why we are here. We are looking at the Pro Tour, of course, the road to Katowice, and basically what all the teams are going to be aiming for. So I'm hoping we have a cheeky little graphic that we can bring up to sort of tell you how many points are going to be going to each region. Of course, there have been Oceania and Asia being played at the very early hours of the morning. I caught a little bit of that, saw a few clips here and there, but it's the big boy points going through to Europe that at least I'm personally focusing on, and I believe we can actually have a look at Europe leaderboard at the moment, which we're currently looking at Vitality, Heroic, Astralis, like the ones sort of leading the charge. I believe they're already qualified for the main events in Katowice, but there's a few others that are still on the brink that we might have, looking to try and get a little bit further forward. Again, as well, you have the likes of FURIA, who are already in the main event as well, so we'll be seeing how they're going to be doing in Katowice later in the year. And as said, they're one of the teams that we have coming up. And for some of the other teams, like with 400 points on offer, you can see the difference, at least in Europe more so than what we currently have in the NA side of things, but you can see the difference that 400 points can definitely make with leading you towards that Pro Tour. And of course, going into next year, we will have the same going as well. So it's worth doing. Obviously, going into 2021, there'll be plenty of tournaments available for these teams. I know the Cologne will be coming up later in the year. There'll be plenty of Masters that will gain you some points as well, and some Opens, which are still yet to be announced as well. But for now, at least, Vince, I do think that we have waffled quite a bit, because we're yet to even get into our pre-show. We've just been sort of setting things up, leading you towards what is our first match of the day. And this is going to be the look at FURIA facing off against North. FURIA are a team that are slightly on the brink. They've been having some issues recently, even talks of potentially a roster change coming through. And for North, they're at the other end of the scale, as they have just changed 2 players. We'll be back after the break to bring you our first match of DreamHack Masters Winter. Our first game looms on the horizon. The Titans of FURIA making their way over to Europe to face off against a brand new look North. It is seemingly a bit of a mismatch when you put these two teams on paper, but with some questionable sort of results recently for FURIA, and maybe their map pool taking a bit of a hit, it's going to be a bit of an interesting matchup. My name is Tombiz. Joining me once again is Vince, and I believe we're going to go straight into have a look at the bracket, at least of our Group B. And Vince, we can sort of decide from there where we think maybe this group is actually going to go.
Yeah, I think coming into the tournament, Group B was considered kind of the group of death. You know, you've got more of the heavy hitters, the big names, the Astralises, the Liquids, the Mouses, G2 obviously with Nico coming in. Surprisingly, 2 of the heavy hitters already down in the lower brackets. And that does mean as well, Tom, there's a golden opportunity for some of these more periphery and fringe teams that maybe aren't having the greatest time to now go through to the playoffs, have a direct shot across there. The downside, though, if you do go down into the lower side of the bracket, well, guess what? You've got Astralis or Liquid waiting for you. So you've got to make sure you take your chances and you convert them as best as you can.
Yeah, of course. I think this is going to be interesting. Of course, something else I'm looking forward to seeing is where is Twitch going to be going on this one? Because I know that a lot of the Brazilians are going to be stolen away by this guy. I don't know if you've heard of him. Nah, name doesn't ring a bell. Either way, it's hashtag Fur. Oh, I like it. Sounds fancy. Or hashtag North to decide who you think is going to be winning this match. Of course, I think that we're probably going to be edging our direction in the favor of FURIA, or at least I am. But nonetheless, we are going to start taking our first look at FURIA. As said, recently things haven't been going too great, Vince, but they are still definitely a team that people have to fear.
100%. For me, for my money, they're the most entertaining team in the world to watch. I love commentating these guys. Art is just a madman in all the best possible ways. And I think that even if they are wounded, even if they're a team that are struggling a little bit, they've also just came off the back of beating Liquid again. They have been the nemesis of Liquid, who by no means are complete, you know, in a slump right now. They're having decent-ish performances. So no, I'm not going to write off FURIA. I think they're still the favorite. I completely echo what you said. I expect this to be fairly one-sided, but again, we fell into that trap yesterday, Tom.
Yeah.
It didn't work out for us.
Yeah, I think that's the main worry, is sort of like, if this isn't a clean victory, I don't think we're going to be sat here going like, oh yeah, North have managed to fix all of their problems in a matter of weeks, and getting rid of MSL has just sorted everything out. I don't think that will be the case. We'll start to look at FURIA and go, okay, maybe things are a little bit more problematic. Luckily, we don't really have to just give our opinions on this because we do have a little video coming from the side of FURIA as they're going to talk you through how things have been going a little bit more recently.
Playing against Nord, I think we are kind of comfortable. I mean, all the matchups we managed to win, so we're just working hard and we spent like a great match against them.
All left onto JKS. And Vinny just toying with him. The Deagle of Vinny proves to be too strong. And FURIA with 2 rifles in the round.
We're just working harder and harder, and I think we're ready for this tournament right now. I would say after all the hard work we're doing, we definitely expect to go deep on the DreamHack Winter.
Interesting. Well, they seem to be ready. It's weird because we're kind of almost focusing more so on like, okay, they had a few hiccups here and there, like losing a map to Isurus in fairly dominant fashion. Sort of made me question them a little bit, and obviously what happened to some of the previous Blast events with them falling down into the lower series. But the thing that really just bring things home was the sort of rumors that we're hearing about Henny, because that would be the main sort of look for me, is that if they're actually thinking of making a roster change when it's very difficult times, at least, especially with everything going on in the world, that would be interesting. But nonetheless, as said, we can't just talk about one side. The other side might even be slightly more interesting at this point, Vince, because North, they have just made 2 massive changes.
Yes, gigantic changes. They've pretty much ripped out the very core of the team in the sense of MSL's leadership. He is a guy that is very structured. He expects things to be done his way. He's gone. Christo, this young Dane that we got to see perform a few times for AGF in the DreamHack Open November, now comes through. And a bit of an unknown in the sense of Kriaz, a guy that many people won't know a great deal about. You start to come down like, who's the IGL on this team? How are their strats going to be coming through? Do they have all of their regular sort of set plays coming into effect? There's a lot of question marks here for me, Tom. And I'm not completely willing to write these guys off, because I think that maybe, just maybe, they can get that sort of puncher's chance come in and just land the haymaker. But I think 99 out of 100 times you're looking at the Brazilians here to be the firm favorites.
Yeah, for sure. I think the players that are currently on North, though, are going to come in very hungry. Like, you've got Christo, again, someone you just mentioned with a point to prove. I think Letcro is the same. And Kriaz, of course, he's on trial. He has to prove a point within this tournament. Nonetheless, you don't have to hear it from us. The guys at North have done another interview.
So for DreamHack Masters Winter, I would say it's all about getting back into my new role and prove with the other guys that we as a core can do some damage. It's going to be tough, so it's all about just playing some simple good CS and keep the mood high and see if we can do some good damage.
And Gade is expecting it, and this stage is one of 2 brilliant kills. Then will fall, and so will mine.
I'm hopeful, and I'm just happy to play against FURIA. I mean, it's always fun watching their games, and I enjoy their style, so hopefully we can take them off guard. That would be quite funny, I think.
Yeah, I think that's all they can really hope to do, Vince. Just try and prove that they can do some damage at least. Like in this match, if they even show some decent form, I'd be quite happy for them. And chances are, going into the lower bracket, they're probably going to end up against Nemiga, which, sure, that's not really a match that I think they'd be too worried about. Obviously, if they then win that game, they're against either Astralis or Liquid. So, you know, that doesn't get any better from there. And going forward into the upper bracket, it would be very different indeed. Either way, we're going to get into the veto. And I think this one is going to be relatively tough to call. I don't know whether North will have been able to change too much, although we spoke to Emmy yesterday and they basically said they changed everything. So you never know. Maybe Gade has done the same. Is there any way you think you can see this one going, Vince?
I expect Dust 2 and Mirage to be banned out very quickly. I think they're just the 2 staple bans. Obviously, FURIA will be getting rid of Dust 2. North will be getting rid of Mirage. And then after that, this is really where it's up in the air. And for me, just like, you know, flip a coin. It's very hard for me to tell where this is coming down, because even any of the propensities of maps that we've seen in the past from these teams, 1, FURIA may be switching a couple things up to try and get over this slump that they're in. And 2, I have no idea what to expect from North here. So maybe something like a nuke could be coming into play. I think Train is a map that we may see. Overpass, maybe. It's hard to tell. But Overpass and Inferno going to be picked up first.
Yeah, I think Overpass, a map that we've actually seen North play a fair amount, but it wasn't particularly good results, although they went close versus FaZe and Heroic. For FURIA, they're on a 5-map win streak on Inferno, so that's not really overly surprising. It's actually one of the maps that they've been able to keep fairly clean. And Looking at this veto, I actually think that North have done fairly well. They've come in with Overpass, as said, a map that they quite like to play. And Nuke is another one where FURIA have actually had a few fairly bad slip-ups recently, as said, like going close against a few teams that I don't think they should necessarily beat. Either way, there is only one thing left to do, Vince. We have got another break coming up relatively shortly, and then after that, we're going to be heading into our first match of today. Welcome back. Very shortly, we'll be getting into our first match of today. It's going to be FURIA facing off against North, and we're going to be kicking it off on Inferno, Vince. Now, this is a map where over in North America, it has been very, very clean for FURIA. In fact, one of the teams I really enjoy watching on this match are actually VP. I think they're a very good Inferno team. It's been one of their best maps for a while. In Blast Premier, FURIA beat them 16-6. They absolutely smashed them. So if I'm going to sit here and go, is there any map where I think the North have no chance? It's going to be Inferno. So if they even show up, get 10, 11 rounds on this map, I think we could be seeing something decent from this roster.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the stats don't lie. They've played it 16 times in the last 3 months. They have a 75% win rate. You put that across the North, albeit two people new coming into the roster, 43% with 7 maps played. Like, you know, the stats really do paint the picture for us.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is going to be a rough one. Going into the maps later on, though, I do think there are some opportunities here. But nonetheless, we are getting our way into Overpass is going to be the first map. I got it the wrong way around. The veto confused the hell out of me, at least, Vince. But we're going to be kicking off on the choice of North. And I think that's good to see, at least initially. At the same time, though, we're still really focusing on FURIA here. Because although North have a brand new team, realistically, we can't expect too much from them.
No, we can't. And they're starting on the T side to kick it off as well. So I really want to see what kind of executes that we have coming in here. What kind of regulations will be taking the forefront. Bit of an awkward engage. Does come out better for FURIA. Cajun knocked down to just 2 HP. And Vinny watching them push down in connector. It should be a bloodbath. There's so many Brazilians here. Henny has opened up his account with 1K Serato from the backside, leaving Cristo in a 1-on-3. 40 seconds. They know where he is. And if they weren't alert to his presence before, he just closed the door in their face. And Vinny will return in kind. But it's a bullet rather than the door. FURIA, they take first blood on their CT side.
Yeah, strong start from them. And this is something we actually see quite commonly in pistol rounds, is that battle for connector. It seems to be one of the most focal points of the map in this term of round. But nonetheless, we are going to see a bit of an investment here. Okay, just a bit slow to purchase. Of course, I think there's going to be some focus points more so on some of the other players within this team. Of course, the likes of Cristo coming in, but he is someone that has already been in this roster once, wasn't necessarily given that AWP's role, and is someone that obviously coming in from AGF as a team that is the academy of North. So it's something they're going to look to keep. A little bit of damage being done in this round, although actually they've got it back into a somewhat doable position. If this goes wrong for Vinny, there could be some trouble here. He's actually going to clear out Cristo, no problems, and Yuri's there to support. But yeah, more so I think Kriya is actually going to be a real focal point, because although he's not necessarily coming in here and expected to be the star player, he needs to make enough of an impression that, say, for example, we were looking at TMB, right, Vince, saying how good he was and is also part of the AGF Academy team. He's got to do well enough that North don't just go, well, we could just have him instead.
Exactly. That's a very good point. Obviously, they will need to put in the context of TMB wasn't playing the likes of FURIA, but at the same time, yeah, absolutely. Like, you have to look at Kriez here and say, he's got to impress us in some way. It's Henny, though, that breaks open the site, and maybe he's got a few points to prove. As you said, there's been some rumors. Maybe Junior in and Henny out. Whether that takes the forefront is yet to be seen, but if he keeps to perform and keeps to putting those M4 frags down range, and then obviously later on you expect him to peek up the AWP, perhaps not. Art with his own M4, locking down long, and Yuri drops the bomb onto balloons. There's not really much that Letcro can do about this. It wasn't a hefty investment though. North will have a full buy in the next round, but it's only one casualty in the form of Henny that goes down with the third.
That'll be the thing that interests me the most, though, is if the rumors are anything to do with, like, performance. Because from the way they're playing at the moment, like, they recently had a victory, they beat Liquid, they're playing all right, they've only just flown over to Europe, so I don't think they can expect the results to be flawless. There's a part of me that wonders if it's something to do with travel. I know that, obviously, Henny, from what we've seen in the past, was someone who was very family-focused. It could just be him being far enough away from Brazil for so long that maybe it's causing some issues. Who knows? It's all just conjecture. But I don't know. I just can't feel like it's purely performance-based to try and get rid of him. Cage him, though. That's huge. A double kill in the connector. Of course, this is somewhat of a bonus round, but they have invested into that AWP, as you mentioned. Henny needing to land some shots, but Quesarado retaking short B is almost going to force them in towards Henny. So push in this direction now would have some pretty big risks, and Kriaz is taking a nasty chunk along the way.
Some pretty serious ramifications depending on this trade. If Kriaz can just about hold on, throws in the Molotov, you can see what he was looking for, but maybe snatching it is chance. There's still a lot of time left. He didn't have to force that play just yet. Mounts the pressure, Henny misses the AWP shot. Just have a good idea that Christo can lock it down from that angle looking up to the site, so no need to peek in. You have the player advantage. Force North to do the work. They've got some utility, but it's all centralized on the young Dane. And he's joined by the Swede of Letcro, carrying the bomb in. Flashbang on top of it. Shadow betrays Christo. Henny spins around but can't land the shot. Letcro punishes him and nearly takes down Quesarado. If he had have picked up the kill, it would have been an interesting 1v1. But as it stands, the Brazilians have been flawless. 4-0 starts.
And that's one of those rounds that North needed to win. I think getting off to a strong start, not only in the round, but in this game was really important. And they've just been shut down by Quesarado. Again, someone we know can easily take over a match. And I think in this sort of matchup, the thing that's almost harsh for North is not only have they come into this with a couple of new players, but even if this had been a roster that had been together for 6 months or a year, they're still going to be the underdog in this scenario. Like, FURIA have proven themselves to be one of the best teams in the world. They've come into this, they've come over to Europe to basically prove that. That's the way I have to look at this. Like, they have dominated NA. We've seen it over the last few months. They've been able to win multiple tournaments. Sure, there's been ups and downs, but you have to bear in mind that there's still powerhouses like EG and Liquid over there, and, well, even Chaos starting to build a name for themselves. So they've come to Europe to try and prove, okay, we can still compete with the very best. And thus far, they've been doing pretty well. Like, sure, the first tournament, I'm going to give them a little bit of slack and just say, you know, that didn't go great, but so far, coming in here, I would expect them to dominate this match. And as said, when it comes to Inferno especially, if North get 10+ rounds, going into that lower bracket match, I would feel pretty confident for them.
Yeah, I mean, FURIA currently are ranked 7th in the world, North 31st. But honestly, with the 2 changes, you could probably subtract 10 or 20 world ranking points to that. You know, and that's not me being harsh or taking digs or anything. It's just the fact that in terms of strategy, it's been stripped down to the very lower levels. MSL was such an integral part. And for me, he kind of was North to a degree. And it's going to be very interesting to see kind of who picks up the mantle of the IGLing, how the tactics alter or adapt, if they even do. We saw Emmy yesterday and asked him, you know, have you just picked up basically what Crystal was doing? It's been such a short amount of time and ran with Crystal strats. He's like, absolutely not. I've brought in all my own ideas and we've been running through those. So be curious to see how much North have been able to really dip into that strategy book and what they're going to be bringing to the table. In terms of this round, though, it's kind of been taken away from them, that choice, Tom. They just have to stick with pistols. They do have an AK in the hands of Letcro, and we know he's more than capable of rattling a few heads, but where FURIA have been playing, he may not get the chance. The Molotov has missed, though, and that's pretty important. And FURIA, I'm not sure if they'll realize that.
chances are they won't, but they didn't really aggress off of the angle. It might just give them a slightly worse timing. That Art is a madman. Like, there's like the rule on Overpass is that you really shouldn't fight outside monster too often, but he doesn't abide by the rules. That's something I've learned throughout his Counter-Strike career, is that, well, it's like sort of when my mum would do something that she'd specifically told me not to do, and she would just say, don't do what I do, do as I say. And I feel like that's Art's mantra.
Yeah, kind of double standards, but he can somehow make it work. So you're like, oh, okay, fair enough.
But don't do that, Henny. It's like, but last round, you shut up.
I'm the captain of this ship. You do what I say. But North, one-on-one, in terms of trades, like, honestly, you take that when you only have 1 AK coming into the round. You take that at the best of times on the T side. You can split Fury a little bit thinner. But the problem here, Tom, is even though they get a 1-for-1, there's only 35 seconds left, and they've barely got any control over the map. They've got Connector, which is good news, but they're only just starting to move up Bathroom.
A chance, though, that they could overwhelm Henny. AWP up close, the support actually looking over towards long. The problem is he doesn't miss too many shots, but Lekro, the tasty Deeg shot, always been one of my favorites to watch with that weapon, and proving why once again the time though, the bomb's on the floor. He has to just pretty much kill everyone here, although, oh, he actually fakes it. Maybe expecting them to be closer than they were, and Queserado's just not going to fight this. A lot of damage done. He needs to survive with this AWP. Legs Queserado, but just about gets out of there. A worthwhile round for North, a lot of damage done, and more importantly, a decent round for Lekro. And actually, Vince, although we've spoken about the newbies, sort of the change of Gade or Gel taking over that in-game leadership role, I think Lekro is actually going to be one of the most pivotal players in this team, because towards his end in NIP, he was actually putting up some pretty decent numbers while in-game leading. I want to see if maybe in a slightly freer style with more opportunities for him to be a bit more aggressive, if he can get back to some of the initial fragging power we saw when he burst onto the scene.
For sure. I think a lot of people, as Henny is getting the pick of the frags, he was being very patient, knowing that Fury was up close with him. Arta's got a secondary AWP, and he's made it work. And the second that North get a buy into the round, they have been utterly destroyed, dismantled by FURIA. A much more convincing round than the one prior. Cajun B, plenty of time, can pick up the bomb, but because he's been spotted so early on, it just allows Vinny to push around the back. So there's not really any options. There's no way that he can push in and survive. He knows it, as the FURIA, and they have that ruthlessness to finish him off. But yeah, I mean, Lekro, when he first came to North, there was a lot of people that are pretty hype about the move because of the guy's talent and his ability, and he's a very versatile player. As you said, he can IGL, he can also just play pretty much every role. But the issue here is, for me, Tom, who else can he feasibly rely on to be putting up the big frags and to help him out? Like, he can't do it all alone.
Yeah, that's true. And when we saw Christo, even in open, like, he was very hit and miss. Like, I think one of the days he was the MVP of the entire day. And then the other day we were talking about how TMB had almost had to, like, try and hard carry them because he just didn't turn up at all. Like, he was looking at games of, like, 11 to 15 frags, which, sure, it happens for an AWPer, especially someone as young as him, but that can't happen in a Masters. Like, he has to be at his best, and even then, that might not be enough. So, early days. But so far, it has just been the FURIA show. Henny, he's been a focal point because he's been so aggressive so far, just taking picks, but normally in a, I don't want to say passive way, but in a way where he can get out of there. This time, though, he's actually going to be punished. But Queserato, he's 9-1. Only got his first death a couple of rounds ago, and since then, it has been nigh on clean for the side of FURIA. They are utterly dominating, not in terms of their finances, but in terms of the rounds. There has been nothing other than that attempted clutch from Lekro. Priaz, well, unfortunately, he's not even going to get his second kill just yet. 7-0, a little bit of BM. Why not, Yuri? It's sort of like beating a dead horse as you're already 7-0 up, but why not?
Yeah, and going back to the issue that we mentioned about Lekro and maybe a lack of support structure, then you move over to FURIA and it's like, right, well, any of these 5 players can absolutely take over the game and just destroy. Like, there aren't really any weak links for me. Even if you go dip down into the lower statistical players, Often it's just because they're playing roles that don't really facilitate a lot of kills, and because the kills are being taken away from their heavy hitters. So North, outclassed in a lot of different metrics, Skate, though, is going to get the opening pick. The first time that I can really remember where North have actually had an advantageous position. But can they do anything with it? Because Henny is pushing up long. He is waiting to find a pixel to execute off. Gade goes in for a second. Now Yuri's gone down. B site is very vulnerable. And Vinny decides to push into the smoke of Monster to try and mitigate some of those issues, to nullify it. Henny comes out swinging with the AWP. Vinny checked the angle and had a double take, but it was too late. And finally, it seems like North will get on the board, unless Henny and K-Serato pull off a masterful clutch.
They're on the wrong side of the map, which is the main problem. But for North, there are two players desperately low. Potential of a free kill, but Gade is on a tear. 3 kills for him in this round. He was previously an entry fragger for this side. Before he was an in-game leader, and before that he was an entry fragger again. So he can definitely play the role well. I think that's something that does also interest me a little bit about this team, is I feel like they have a lot of players that can sort of do multiple roles at once. So if things aren't working, they could try switching things up. At the same time, I'm not certain this will be the final roster. Like, Kriaz, from his time in Gen G, I don't want to really base too much off of that, because he was literally just slot into a roster that didn't really make much sense, that was just thrown together for one event to try and, well, at least maybe keep their spot and do a bit of damage along the way. And in some of the matches, he did all right. In some of the matches, he stood in for other teams, he's done all right. But we haven't really seen him in a long-standing team that's gone for like a few months. So there's possibilities that he's a fantastic teammate, and we'll see him like rise to the occasion if North give him the chance. But that's the question, because especially when it comes to like Danish and Swedish talent, there's bucket loads.
Oh yeah, it is one of those regions that is just so fortunate, blessed with tons of talent. It's been a reason why North, in particular, has been kind of disappointing in a lot of parts. They've had all of these opportunities to pick up these youngsters that have gone on to be brighter elsewhere. And you just think, North, why aren't you taking more risks in the past? It's good to see some of the youngsters now coming into the team. But this is a real baptism by fire as well, though, Tom. Like, Kriaz and Christo would not have played a tournament of this stature before against these kind of teams actively. And so it's asking a lot from 2 inexperienced players to come into this and perform really well. So this is where you need some of those veteran experienced players to take them under their wing. Lekro cracking open the head of Art and taking some control over Connector. But there is a second player here. It's Yuri to try and steady the ship.
Oh, we're going to see the rotation from North back towards Long. Now, they're going to expect that somewhere around this angle, Henny will be lurking, consistently trying to find out information and basically be irritating for the opposing side. He has a little bit of support, but it's back towards the connector, so the reliance will be on him. Now, Gade has the bomb, so a peek here would be so risky. That's so much information, and more so, they have to try and reclaim this. The flash avoided, but they have got the bomb. Actually peeks back in and does a lot of damage to Henny, who attempts to try and find another himself, but instead ends up falling. 45 seconds, though, for the T side. It's taken them a long time to gain a fairly small amount of map control, and they're being slowly surrounded by the side of FURIA.
The tides are coming in. The terrorists have to brute force their way out. There's not much time to go with it either. It's dwindling away. The last few grains of sand are dropping down. And the positions of FURIA are so good. They have a great read of the situation. There's one flashbang, but a beautiful entry from Kriaz. That being said, though, they get caught with grenades out. Lekro still comes out ahead. 4 seconds, and Kriaz puts the bullet into the head of Yuri. What a turnaround from North. And it's one of their youngsters, one of their new recruits that comes out massive.
I'm almost wondering if they actually had enough time to plant the bomb, because I think he got onto the site with about 4 seconds left. Now, it takes roughly 3.5, so I think he may have just about had it, but I almost wonder if it was worth just waiting those few seconds. Either way, as you mentioned, Kriaz, he's gone huge, and It's exactly what they needed. More so, to the point, FURIA have now run out of cash because some of those rounds were a little bit closer. You think back to the 3K that Lecro managed to find with the Deagle, and not in too bad a spot whatsoever. Gade as well is going to start things off. And this round, again, it comes down to FURIA attempting to do some damage, steal a weapon, maybe bring something into the next round. They already have Vinny saving up a bit of cash, but the loss bonus isn't going to be anything too crazy. He may not still have enough to actually drop an AWP. I think he'll have exactly enough, though, just with Kevlar, but it means that he'd have to play the round without any grenades.
Deagle and P250 hoping that North overextend, make some mistakes. No reason to really save anything. May as well go all in. See how much damage you can inflict, how many bodies you can make hit the ground. But so far, it's only FURIA that will be going out in coffins. And Yuri, try as he may with the Deagle, the fact that he's rattling those shots off, to me, North just pull the plug and they all move together through Monster. Clump up, make sure you keep on hold of all these guns. There's no expendable weapons. If you had a Mac 10, you'd probably just send them in. But you definitely don't want to drop the AWP or those AK-47s across to the CTs. Give them a free trade-up. Play it passively. They're playing this round perfectly. Excellent anti-eco by the Danes plus Swede. And they'll move through to a third round. So FURIA being shown to be able to bleed a little bit. But I'm not going to put too much faith in a North comeback just yet, Tom. I need to see more from them.
Yeah, as well, I normally give a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt to the T side of a brand new team. Because, well, Gade is someone who's been an in-game leader before. Lekra as well, we mentioned it. So they're going to be able to come up at least with some decent ideas. I think in terms of individual entry fraggers, the role necessarily won't change. And the flashes you're going to throw, sure, there might be a little bit of problem when it comes to synergy. It's the CT side where my questions really lie. Because especially with someone who's literally just a stand-in, we know that Christo's been playing with AGF until, well, the day before yesterday, because, or maybe one before that, because we were literally casting him play for them. So they've had a few days to try and get everything working on the CT side. Maybe you don't necessarily have the right role for the right player, or you don't have those crossfires set up quite right. So even if they do well, even if they get up to like 6-7 rounds over on this T side, which even that's going to be tough, that does not mean they're going to be able to do things on the CT side just yet. So it's all a learning curve. Of course, with North, we just don't really know just yet. And I even want to say with Godsent, it was a good stack of players where you've sort of brought in another in-game leader and he's added to things. Whereas with North, they've taken out two pretty big parts of a long-standing North roster, and now they're going to have to almost reinvent everything.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to actually be able to pick the brains of one of the North players after this game. Maybe go through a couple of these ideas. Yuri, though, is picking the brains, but with bullets. However, can't transfer into a second. A lot of information was gathered in the process. So even though he only got one kill, you feel like his positioning is worth so much more. K Serato double spray with the M4, and Cajun, who's gone unseen as of yet. It stands to reason he probably would either be long or the B rotation player. So Henny will not miss his chance. And after North post up, 3 on the bounce, they've been pretty comprehensively been put back on the back foot and made to think about things once more. Whatever happens here, FURIA will be leading come the second half. Anything now is just a nice bonus.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised that North don't actually check connector at all in this round. Like, if you're going for a slow walk up towards Banana, like, they would have had actually a free kill on Yuri if they just peeked down even for a second because he was looking the wrong way. Instead, the timing ends up against them, and because of that, the full rotation's available. Art doing art things. They're walking into each other in the smoke, and Korea is actually going to win the duel. The other side of the coin for the in-game leader, K Serrata, though, the flash is flawless from Vinny. An unsung hero a lot of the time in this FURIA roster, with K Serato just on an absolute tear so far today. It's still going to end up in a 3v3 situation, but now Yuri's taking map control. I feel like at this point, Vince, they're just pushing all over the map.
Yeah, that is effectively the FURIA way. They are so good at doing this. One of the reasons they are so damn fun to watch, and Yuri just pops in behind again. It must be a real nightmare to play against. One of the most frustrating players in CS. He always seems to get the perfect timing on these flanks. And there's Vinny on the short pipe. Puts the bullet into Lecro. 9-3. And North had about $8,000 across a bunch of players. And now they find themselves actually in a really awkward position where they may not even go for a full purchase. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next. But yeah, you're just seeing the importance and overpass of playing this very aggressive style through connector, getting outside of B short, getting that early control. It really does make the T side that much more difficult to operate on.
And once again, just could be a few pistols invested. One of the rounds they were actually a little bit more successful. What's based off these pistols? Art's been caught a few times, but I guess in this sort of match, it doesn't really matter as much as it might do going later on into the tournament against B. I would call that a fairly ambitious play. I think at this stage, you had to know that there was 2 players waiting for you in Monster, so the flash throw needed to be an absolute god flash to give a chance at killing off anyone. I like the retake of Connector, though. Gives them a chance for some more close-range battles. The problem is Yuri has been pretty stellar so far, and they walk around the angle without actually checking the stairs. Oh, this is just easy pickings for him. 15 kills now in the server. 10 rounds on the board for FURIA, and they are dominating.
This is kind of what I expected, Tom. You know, it's been a tournament so far that I think it's safe to say we've had to expect the unexpected. But coming into it, we both felt that FURIA would be the heavy favorites for this reason. They are just so much more well-oiled machines. They're just got that cohesion. They're clicking. And North, they can't breathe. They must feel so constricted. And look again, Yuri is having no chill. Straight down the throat, straight down the heart of North. AK headshot and just pieces out. Simultaneously, by the way, they pushed 2 players out Monster, and now they're going through short pipe. And if there's any justice in the world, Cajun's going to get both of them. Does he? No, only one. That's not good enough. And now Yuri, who pushed outside of mid, has now shown his hand in connector. And they just can't stop pressing W.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to my point of before that FURIA is probably the worst team they ever could have faced against in this tournament. Like, it's just not fair. Like, you could practice, you could strategize, you could look at their demos for a full week straight, and you're just never going to be prepared for some of the stuff that they're attempting to throw in. A 2v2 situation, a good chance for North to finally win a round. Gade's in a fairly good position here. The problem is getting the bomb down when you have someone like Quesarado around might be a little bit more difficult. Cristo succeeds at least. It comes down almost to a couple of 1v1s. They're still trying to work out where Gade actually is, and Henny taking his time with the AWP, but the fact is there's actually nobody watching towards Monster. They've got to be fairly careful because so many angles left to check. And again, I like the call. Take some map control, push forward, make it more difficult for them to try and retake, try and find these remaining players. And Gade now having such a powerful angle versus Quesarado. It's left all onto Henny. He's got no time, and the IGL will lead them through a second round.
Damn, Gade. Okay. 2 very brisk 1-taps. Super crisp. And with that, FURIA will have enough for a buy, including a double AWP going into the last round of the half. They're juggling a few weapons on North as well. It is going to be Kriaz down to a Mach 10, however. Far from ideal. Cristo could have dropped a Galil, so that's quite interesting. Maybe a read into what's coming up next. That Molotov's missed a few times, and it will again here for FURIA. So going back to the drawing board, maybe work on that Molotov. But a number of times North have actually been able to just walk straight out. It hasn't really cost FURIA, though, in terms of lives. I feel like they've had a good idea of when it's not landed. They can obviously hear it exploding in the air. It makes a very different sort of sound. So they've not pushed behind it and potentially died off the back of it. But Yuri, again, getting into connector. And he's facilitated this spot because of Henny's position. But now that Henny's thrown in the smoke and can't really support him, Yuri is basically all alone. He just has to take as many North players with him as possible, and he won't get a single one. And that will now be a weapon traded up if Kriaz can get into position.
Well, Gade isn't even going to spot the man who kills him. Straight through the wood, Vinny has found the trade, but it's an upgrade of rifles, and actually a 4v4 is not too bad for the T side. Well, talk about players pushing Monster. He's thinking of pushing Spawn, but after being spotted, not only will he retreat, but actually, the teams have started making their rotation back. The problem is, I almost think that this is something that FURIA will predict, and as we've noted throughout this match so far, FURIA are very happy to take that toilet's control.
Yeah, they love it, man. And they've got an interesting off-angle setup as well. This isn't a spot that you typically play in, but the case Serato can sit there because Henny had the long side of bathroom covered. And now Vinny, who's made a move up, has Henny to pivot off. Oh, it's just beautiful. Flawless plays from FURIA time after time. And they will lead, as expected, 11-4 going into the second half. I think it's safe to say any doubts about Furia's current performances and current form has been put to bed, at least in that first half, and now North are on the CT side. Maybe this is where they can get a little bit more stabilized. Furia basically bullied them with just hyper-aggressive plays time after time. But let's be honest, Tom, you've got to expect that from Furia. Their reputation surely precedes them at this stage.
Yeah, there's one thing expecting Furia, and then there's another thing doing something about it. I think many teams have started to go, well, I know what they're going to do, and then got killed while they're doing it. Already, though, not a bad start for Vinny. He's going to get rid of Christo, who is yet to really show up to the server, unfortunately. And, well, with what is probably a long road starting here, I don't think it's necessarily a surprise.
Yeah, they're already running into some potholes, some twists and turns, over facing a cliff, but Henny has put the Glock to use alongside Art. There's only one kill that sprung up, make that two. Lecro, awkward angle with the USP. You can see that FURIA are respecting not only the rotation, but Lecro's positioning, but Case Serato on the fadeaway takes the head off of Gade. Lecro does have a good read of it. He comes down towards the B site. He's anticipating there will be some action down here, but they've sent Art alone. They've kept the bomb and connector. He bypasses. Does he hold on to this? This could be such a huge brain play from Lecro. He knows that Art is going to be the information gatherer. He posts in position. He gets himself one kill, and he knows that Art is over here, so he can instantly put his aim down sight to try and take off the head of Art. He's running out of ammunition, and he's running out of health, and he goes down. But I've got to say, Tom, that is such a nice effort. You could see what he was trying to go for, and a part of me really wanted to see him succeed.
Yeah, for sure. Big brain, high IQ plays coming out from Lecro, because the easy thing to do there is just kill Art and then try and win the round from there. But you know that in the 1v2, chances are the remaining players of FURIA are still going to win this, so he looks to try and deny any chance of a plant, catch the players out as they rotate. Unfortunately, shots didn't quite land this time, but still a very intelligent play. Nonetheless, 5 deagles. So we've got a full-on deco. Plenty of utility invested into as well. The problem is this is a very fast play coming out of FURIA. It could come back to bite them because there's actually a hell of a lot of North players here.
There are. Gade and Kriaz, though, have been tagged down so heavily. Kriaz still threads the deagle shot into Yuri. Gade has been put out of his misery for round 17. Now more CTs are showing their hand. There's also one wrapping around the back. That will be Christo, who's invested pretty heavily. He's not dipping out for the deagle, or the AWP, I should say, anytime soon. Henny is coming straight through the smoke. Case Serato spins around on a swivel and shovels away Christo, and the rest is falling into place. There were a couple moments, Tom, I agree, where you're worrying a little bit for FURIA walking into the stack, but to be fair, they didn't overextend and they played it wisely.
Yeah, obviously this is still like FURIA facing off against a weaker team, but I don't think you can really doubt anything to do with Henny's individual level. Like, he's been performing very well so far, 17 and 9, seemingly having a pretty decent day individually, and he was playing very aggressively in that CT half as well. Now the stack, again, it's a good read. They've got everybody in place. They might be able to get a kill or two here as they all looked around the corner. Nice initial shots coming in from Kriaz, but the trades come in thick and fast.
Yeah, it was basically the eco after going for some deagles, and Christo will have the AWP. So this is what they've been building towards on their CT side. They knew that the pistol was paramount. They lost it. And now that road that you touched on before has suddenly hit a very steep incline. Things are getting a little bit too close for comfort. Keep in mind as well, this was North's pick, Tom, and they're being destroyed on it, so with Inferno up next, I'm not too sure what to expect. Christo hasn't had much chance to do a great deal of anything in this game, and now he's got his hand on the AWP. I want to see what this guy has in store. I want to see him start to tee off. Cajun tagged down heavily in connector. Nades and flashes ripping all around him, and with 15 HP, he'll feel like this area is just way too hot for him to hold on to. Christo flicks and misses, and that is a huge part of North's defense that goes with it.
Maybe a few nerves creeping in. First map back on the roster that's already kicked you once. Kriaz, though, he's had his moments to try and find Art once again, and we'll turn things back into a 3-on-3 situation. Quick rotation, though, coming out from FURIA. They've already looked to pounce on the other side of the map, and as said, Henny has just not been missing today. 19 and 9. I believe he's the top fragger in the entire server. While Gade, he's had a few hero moments. I think 2 of the rounds that they've managed to win have pretty much solely been down to him. The problem is at this point is, are you going to win the 2v3? Probably not. Are you going to win a map from 15-4 down? Probably not. So there's not really a good scenario here. They go for it, they lose, they're in a worse position than before. They don't go for this, they save, they have to win 11 rounds in a row.
Yep, it's the heads you win, tails I lose. You know, there is no easy way forward. Absolutely agree. And even the position where he's looking to try and save, by the way, he may still die here. So, yeah, he will be turning away and just sprinting back towards the sanctuary of B site, looking to hold on to his M4. Priyaz, miles away in playground, keeps his AK, but now 11 map points come up. With those 2 save guns, they can get a decent buy together, but yeah, I think you're onto something there, Tom. It does feel like Christo is just very, very uncomfortable. Understandable. As I said, it is a baptism by fire. You know, you come into this game, there's a lot of eyes on you. Obviously, a lot of the community is going to be curious as to how this roster change comes together. And you've just been completely and utterly dispatched without really breaking a sweat for the Brazilians.
Oh dear. Oh, it doesn't look like it's about to get any better. The beginning of the end, it seems, as Vinny starts off with an opener. It's to look at positives, not really for North, but in general. FURIA playing this well and just dominating is a very good sign. Like, this is what I wanted to see from them, to have any faith that they were going to do well in this tournament. They needed to come out here and just put on a show, and they have absolutely obliterated North from start to finish. It is looking like the last 2 players of Cajun and Christo, experience with youth, attempting to win a 2 versus 4 situation. I'm not holding my breath, Vince.
No, that would definitely be a good idea, Tom. I don't want to lose you. Because, I mean, Christo and Cajun, they're just dead men. They're dead men walking. They just don't know it yet. And now Cajun 13 HP. Lucky for some, unlucky for others. And FURIA have put this down. They've administered the mercy. They finished it off quick. And so for that, I suppose North can be thankful. But their choice of map could not really have gone any worse, Tom. It was never close in any single metric.
Well, yeah, I mentioned in the pre-show that in the old iteration of North, they seemed to not really have a home map. Like, they consistently kept picking, like, I think it was in their last 5 series, their pick was 4 different maps. So they went through Vertigo, Nuke, Overpass. Like, it was just not something that they particularly seemed to have a map they feel favorable on. Today they went for Overpass, they got absolutely smashed. And unfortunately, Vince, I don't think it's about to get any better. Inferno will be coming up, but first, we have to go to a short break. Wow. Hello and welcome back to the FURIA highlight reel. We're going to be going through and seeing all their players, just getting lots of kills, and then every once in a while, Gade will get one. And Vince, I feel like showing this again is almost a little bit mean.
I almost feel like it's a crime, Tom. You know, I feel like we're doing something deeply morally wrong. But such is the nature of Counter-Strike. You know, it can be a very cruel and difficult game. And that's exactly what North will be feeling. We didn't have too many expectations, let's be honest. But I expected them to do a little bit better. You know, even though I thought they probably would lose this best of 3, I at least expected maybe 10 rounds, maybe to make it a bit more competitive. So let's see if Inferno fares better. My gut instinct is telling me probably not.
Yeah, no, this is the one map that if we talk about the FURIA have been having a few issues, like a few losses on Nuke, on Overpass, that there've been a few slip-ups here and there. Inferno has not been the case. Like, they're on a 5-win streak against teams like 100 Thieves before they obviously left the organization, Liquid as well. Like, they were dominating North America and then even coming in and beating VP, who I personally think are one of the best Inferno teams we have. Like, even in terms of like the top teams, I think VP are a very good Inferno team. So they're very good on this map, and the problem is this is one that allows them to go quite aggressive as well. The one thing I will say is I think FURIA looked very, very good, which is a great sign for the rest of the tournament. As I said, we want to see them performing to the top, especially now that they are in Europe, even if there are rumors that maybe behind the scenes things aren't as perfect and dandy as before. The problem I'm having is this match tells us absolutely nothing. We don't know if FURIA are playing at top level FURIA, or if North are just not ready yet, or maybe a bit of both, which I think is probably the likelihood here.
Yeah, exactly. I would say definitely hold on to many opinions on both teams. You know, North have to be given the benefit of the doubt as well. Sure, they got absolutely destroyed in that last map, but they're super new. And you got people going back to old sort of positions. You got players coming in that aren't used to playing in the positions that they're currently in, very young players in Christo and Kriaz. Like, you've got to give them a chance. You've got to give them a chance to gel, got to give them a chance to click in. This FURIA team has been together for a pretty damn long time, especially Counter-Strike wise at this stage. So you have to expect when it comes to raw tactics, they're going to be ahead. When it comes to individual prowess, they're going to be ahead. This is a team that has super crazy amounts of firepower. And like you said, stylistically, a team that's feeling like a little bit raw right now and a little bit dodgy, the worst team you could face off against in the world is FURIA, because they're going to make the most of every single problem that you have.
Well, yeah, I think that was pretty much put the nail on the head when it was like Yuri was just pushing connector every single round and they were not quite clearing it properly. You had Art, who in like 3 or 4 rounds pushed all the way through Monster and was holding their spawn with an AWP. Like, and for the whole game, we just saw Henny basically just playing around that banana connector side and just causing a nuisance. They didn't really seem like they stood a chance. And unfortunately, Inferno Vince doesn't look much better. We've got another break. You got some ads to watch, and then we'll be going into Inferno to see if FURIA are going to do even more damage.